Calculus is really boring, so I turned it into a video game with wizards and spells and monsters. Technically, anyone can turn anything into a video game. For example, abracadabra, abracadame, I just turned taking a shit into a video game. The wizard is me, the spell is me taking a shit, and the monster is the toilet. But can I make this calculus game fun? Can I make it educational? And most importantly, can I make it money? Can I make it make money? First, we're gonna need a player and we're gonna need a monster. And I know what you're thinking. That doesn't look anything like a player or a monster. But what about now? Yeah, alright. Looks like shit. Now we gotta put some math into this thing. My idea is the player is like a wizard guy, and the monster is gonna be a math equation. And to kill it, you don't do any of that lame shit like stabbing it with a sword, or casting a spell, or shooting it with a gun. You find the derivative of it, and that kills it. And that's way cooler than that other shit. And if you don't know what a derivative is, that's probably because you're an idiot. But that's okay, I am too. Basically, imagine you jump off the William Jolly Bridge because you asked your friend's sister out on a date and she said no. And because there's this little thing that I like to call physics, your fall would look like a parabola. And you could actually go on the desmos.com as you're falling and graph it. If you then calculated the derivative of that, that would tell you how fast you're going at each point in your lovely journey. So at the start, you're not going that fast, but then as gravity pulls you down, you get faster and faster until you eventually hit the water. And you could calculate how fast you're going when you hit the water and see if you're alive, or like the opposite of that when you hit the water. There's a bunch of rules you follow when you derive stuff, and it looks super hard and gross when you first see it, but it's actually really easy. You just grab this thing, you put it down there, you grab that one, you -1 from that, that goes away, and bada bing, bada biv, you got the derivative. I think it's a little bit harder when you get bigger equations, but there's a formula, or three. But it's really easy, you just put the things in where it tells you to put the things in, and it's really not that hard. And like, I don't know why people keep asking me how to do the f***ing chain rule, and if one more person asks me how to do the f***ing chain rule, I'm gonna jump off the f***ing William Jolly Bridge. Again. I didn't actually jump off the William Jolly Bridge, but I did ask out my friend's sister. Twice. And then she told me to jump off the Story Bridge instead. Anywho, so my idea is the wizard will have 4 different spells, one for each of the formulas. The chain rule, the product rule, the quotient rule, and the direct rule, which is, it's where you just don't need a special rule at all, you just use one of these little formulas, that's just what I call it. And casting each spell is like chanting an incantation, but instead of this lame Latin the pieces of the spell are the pieces of the formula. Then once you have them all, you just cast the spell and kill the monster. So I coded the basics of this, and then I worked on some art. And I am definitely not an artist, and I tried to get ChatGPT to make the pictures, but they weren't quite what I needed. So I watched a lot of tutorials and was, let's just say, heavily inspired by them. Alright, I didn't just copy them, okay? I actually tried to learn how to do it myself and make it a bit different. But yeah, the slime and the wizard are basically just these pictures. But I did these menu pictures myself, which is why they look like ass. Then I made the monsters. So the green slime monster is just a 1-step derivative, but the chain rule is for when you have a basic function, then inside of that you have another function. So I made the chain rule monster look like it has another monster inside it. And as one of my students told me, that doesn't look like a monster at all, which fair enough, it kind of just looks like the pimple on my back. But I'm not an actual artist, and so this is just what we're gonna have to deal with. The product rule is where 2 functions are timesing with each other. So I asked ChatGPT for some help, and it kind of helped, and ended up making these 2 monsters just kind of mush together. And then halfway through I realized, oh my god, this just looks like a butt. Finally, the quotient rule is for when 2 functions are dividing with each other, like in a fraction, so one is on the top and one is on the bottom. And so I made this monster thing where there's 2 slimes like hovering over each other or something. I don't really know what this one was. Okay, so we have all that shit set up now, but there's just one issue. Writing maths on paper is super easy. Most people don't know this, but you can actually write whatever you want on paper. And on a computer, we can do numbers, we can do plus and minus, we can do letters, obviously, and we can do powers by pressing superscript, we can do times by using this asterisk thingy, or like just typing an X, and that's basically everything.
Except the villain of the story. Fractions.
These little motherfuckers nearly broke me. You'd think you could just use the slash symbol, and it's not too bad with like 3 out of 7 or something, but for more complex things, it gets very fast. Hey Michael, why don't you just type the numerator, underline it, press enter, and put the denominator underneath. Wow, you're a genius. No, you're not a genius. You are a king. All hail the king of the idiots. I already tried that, and it also only works for simple fractions. And if you type something after it, it just looks so f***ed. I also tried lots of solutions from ChatGPT. Some of them were better than others, but they had similar problems. Once you get more complicated things, it doesn't really work. Why the fuck is this so hard? Websites like Desmos can do this super easily. I should be able to smash this because, you know, they're a big company of smart people who've been doing it for a long time, and I'm an engineering dropout who's been doing it for like a week. What the f***? Then I remembered, before I dropped out of engineering, we used to use this kind of programming language called latex. So I googled Unity latex to find a tutorial on oh god, not that type of latex. Who named them the same thing? So I googled Unity latex math. And you know what? It turns out nobody gives a f*** about putting fractions into video games. Who would have thought?
That is no one except Will Done.
I'm sure I f***ed that pronunciation 7 different ways. I'm really sorry, Wilden. But Wilden is the hero, nay,
The Messiah
of this story. I bought his plugin for like $100, which is a lot, but it's nothing compared to like the 5 days I spent trying to do it myself. But yeah, now we can make fractions and shit. Nice. Then I started working on this drag and drop system. And if you don't know what a drag and drop system is, basically it's a system that lets you drag something, then drop it. So, yeah. When you're working out these derivative questions, it helps to lay them out in 4 pieces like this. Then you can just put the pieces into the formula afterwards. So in the game, you type in each piece one by one, then you drag and drop them into the formula. All right, so now the game sort of works and doesn't look like complete ass, but the point of this game is to teach people calculus. So I gotta make a tutorial lesson thing now. And here's a tutorial on how I make tutorials. Step 1, try and fail to figure it out yourself. Step 2, skim through a tutorial on YouTube. Don't watch it, just skim it. Number 3, adapt it terribly into your game. Now, step 4, this is the important one. Write literally 1,000 lines of code and make a terrible system that barely works. And if you ever want to change any part of the tutorial later, good luck, buddy. And congratulations, you are now a idiot. Then I made a high score counter and a health bar and an item system so that when you die, you can buy upgrades to your health and stuff like that so you can get further through the dungeons next time. Alright, so apart from some serious bugs and unfinished parts that I will refuse to deal with until the very end, the game's starting to get done. And it only took 3 months of my life. Now it's time to make some art. Again, I am not an artist, so I watched a lot more tutorials here and learned about perspective and shading and lighting and all that stuff. And look at that shit. That actually doesn't look like complete and total ass for once. This is going to be the shop screen where you buy upgrades. I also made some animations for when the monsters die, and it turns out animating is a whole other skill, and I can barely draw, so I also had to learn how to animate. And then I spent way too long on these staves that are literally only used once as buttons to enter the tutorial for each different rule, but come on, they do look sick. And that's why I thought I was equipped to now make proper backgrounds for the other parts, especially after that shop one went well. And this one for the main menu actually turned out great. I based it on ChatGPT's idea, then I traced over it and I adjusted it, and really it looked pretty ass until I threw in some gradients over the top to make the lighting. And I'm actually pretty proud of this one. Unlike this one, the background for the dungeon, which is like the main part of the game. You're literally looking at it 90% of the time as opposed to the menu, which is like you see once. Then I added this cool animation for the shop and I made the loot zoom over to your mouse so you can collect it easily. And now it was time for the sound. I spent hours going through freesound.org and I got so lucky finding this music, which I think matches it perfectly. And these monster sounds were also pretty good, but I didn't really find anything for this part where you put each correct answer in. I wanted to make it like a powerful magic hum sound, like hum, hum, hum. But I couldn't really find anything quite right. And I was mucking around with this sound effect generator that has a keyboard on it. Then I remembered, hang on, I just do happen to possess the knowledge and ability to play an actual piano. So why don't I just look up an online synth keyboard and play some chords or something? And after a bunch of tinkering around with that, I ended up with this. And I also used it to create this sound for the loop. And then I was finally finished. Time to start selling this shit and make some money. You see this guy right here? This guy is a f***ing idiot. I spent the next week fixing all those bugs and things I was putting up, and also just new bugs that I didn't even know existed. And then I finally got it to the point where it was like 99% finished. I finished pretty much all the main stuff. I fixed almost all the bugs, but it just got to the point where the shitty code I wrote on day one was just making everything take 10 times longer. But anyways, let's give it to people to test.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to Google. I don't think there's any rows are glitched. Oh! Okay. Oh, that's cool. Holy shit.
Ooh, what is that? I get a coin.
Oh, triple coin.
There's one. There's a number at the front already.
Okay, next. Okay, boom. Yes. Yes. That's lovely. Actually, really well done. It's pretty good. It's so satisfying.
All right, so yeah, it's finished. It turned out all right, but it kind of doesn't really work. There's a lot of bugs in it. If you want to play it, I'll put a download link in the description. Maybe I won't. Bear in mind, it will crash, and it won't really work that well. It turns out making these things is really hard, so this one's not really good enough to charge money for. So yeah, it's completely free if you want to play it. And hopefully the next one I'll be good enough to feel like it's worth asking people for their hard-earned coins. Cool. Like and subscribe.